Monsieur Ratchet had received the threats from an unknown enemy. Mademoiselle Marceau? The tone of these letters suggests an enmity born in the American underworld, of which Monsieur Ratchet was once a part. A former colleague in one of his kidnapping schemes? Who knows? We have the evidence of a detective Monsieur Ratchet hired to protect him.
The detective is Hector McQueen, pretending to be a secretary. The detective is Cyrus Hardman, posing as a salesman of typewriter ribbons. The detective is Masterman, posing as a valet.
The evidence of Monsieur Hardman, who is indeed a detective hired to protect Monsieur Ratchet, gives to us a description of a small, dark man with a womanish voice. Except for the voice, this description would only fit 2 men on this train.
Matteo, the Athens-Paris coach attendant, and Dr. Constantine. Klaus, the chef de cuisine, and Lucien, the waiter.
Yet Monsieur Hardman's vigilance during the night shows that no one could have passed from the Athens-Paris coach to the Calais coach without his seeing them. So anyone in that coach must be exonerated. The enemy actually came aboard the train at Belgrade one of 2 ways.
Through the door left unbolted by Monsieur McQueen, helped aboard through the restaurant car door by Pierre Michel.
This enemy was disguised, leaving behind a button in Madame Hubbard's room when he used her connecting door. Mademoiselle, the disguise? A passkey was found in the pocket of this uniform, giving the murderer access to Ratchet's room. Ratchet was under the influence of a dose of his sleeping draught, light enough to wake him, but strong enough to prevent him from struggling as the killer left through the connecting door.
Hector McQueen confirmed the dosage of the sleeping draught. Masterman confirmed the dosage of the sleeping draught. Pierre Michel confirmed the dosage of the sleeping draught.
Oui, he did. Well, the murder weapon is obvious. Mademoiselle?
It is a stiletto, the type of knife carried by the criminal type in America called the mafiosi.
The killer planned to leave the train at the next station after committing his crime. Show to them the evidence supporting this, mademoiselle. Exact. The avalanche prevented him from reaching Broad. Even so, he went through with the crime and then hid himself.
The killer hid in the baggage car inside Ratchet's crate. The killer hid in an empty room in the Athens-Paris coach. The killer hid in a shepherd's hut on the mountain.
At first, in the Athens-Paris coach. Then later, it is in the hut. Mademoiselle found the uniform and the stiletto. But the killer had fled. He may have escaped down the mountain, or he may have come to his just reward somewhere out there in the snow. First, I will speak to you of time. When did Monsieur Ratchet meet his end? I suspect Mademoiselle Marceau has the theory.
10:40 p.m. Mademoiselle Olsen was the last person to see Ratchet alive because she killed him shortly before 12:37 a.m. It could not have been Ratchet who called out to Michel in French. He didn't speak French. 1:15 a.m. The watch was broken during the attack, and Madame Hubbard heard the killer in her compartment only moments later, earlier than 10:40 p.m. The murderer is not the assassin in the attendant's uniform, but the woman in the scarlet kimono. Later than 1:15 a.m. The murderer is not the assassin in the attendant's uniform, but the woman in the scarlet kimono.
Mademoiselle Olsen spoke to Ratchet from the doorway at 10:40 p.m. She never went inside. It conjures the image most bizarre of her throwing a knife at him 12 times from the doorway. And how does she retrieve it? Is there string attached to the handle? No, that is a solution of a most lurid sort. Let us examine the other possibilities. Let us examine each possibility in turn. 10:40 p.m. or earlier? No, I think not. Mademoiselle Olsen spoke to Ratchet from the doorway at 10:40 p.m., but she never went inside. It conjures the image most bizarre of her throwing a knife at him 12 times from the doorway. And how does she retrieve it? Is there string attached to the handle? No, that is a solution of a most lurid sort. 12:37 a.m.? A more interesting possibility. Monsieur McQueen states that Ratchet spoke no languages other than English, and yet the voice answered Michel in French. Still, I think this was simply a performance for the benefit of Poirot, one of the little improvisations. I was meant to see through it and say, no. Monsieur Ratchet, he was already dead by 12:37. He could not have cried out.
The broken watch said 1:15.
Oui, it did, and it fits with the time of Madame Hubbard's visitor. Now I digress for the reminiscence. I observed to Mademoiselle Marceau that one meets many classes and nationalities when traveling aboard the Express. I asked her to imagine whether such an assembly would ever likely to be collected under any other conditions. And Mademoiselle, what was your reply?
On an ocean voyage in America.
Mademoiselle, I have a book of memory exercises I will send to you when I reach London. Mademoiselle, I have a book of memory exercises I will send to you when I reach London. It seems plausible. And yet, even aboard a ship at sea, one can avoid one's fellow passengers the entire voyage, if that is the wish. C'est ça. Only in America will you find a household composed of so many nationalities. Look about you. As our investigation progressed, it became clear that 9 passengers on this train are connected in some way to the Armstrong kidnapping. Who have we connected to that case, mademoiselle?
Count Andrenyi, Countess Andrenyi, Colonel Arbuthnot, Mary Debenham, Princess Dragomirov, Antonio Foscarelli, Cyrus Hardman, Caroline Hubbard, Hector McQueen, Edward Masterman, Pierre Michel, Greta Olson, Hildegard Schmidt, none of the above.
Précisément. These 4 alone, amongst the occupants of the Calais coach, would appear to have no direct connection with the Armstrong case. Yet I was struck by the curious coincidence that everyone in the Calais coach had an alibi. And these alibis are sometimes corroborated even by those not connected to the Armstrong affair. One of you stated to Mademoiselle Marceau that while Monsieur Ratchet got what he deserved, you would have preferred to see him properly hanged. The trial by jury is a sound system. Who said that, mademoiselle?
Princess Dragomirov, Edward Masterman, Mary Debenham, Colonel Arbuthnot, Count Andrenyi.
Just so. Colonel Arbuthnot. Now that struck a chord with Poirot. I sat back and thought, a jury is composed of 12 people. There are 12 passengers in the Calais coach, discounting myself and Mademoiselle Marceau. Ratchet, he was stabbed 12 times. And the reason the Calais coach was filled in the middle of the winter was explained. All, I repeat, all of the passengers were in on it. They had to be. No alibi could be left to the whim of a stranger. Did this solution explain everything? Let us see. What were the clues that pointed to the first solution, mademoiselle?
The threatening letters, Cyrus Hardman's story of a small dark man, the door left unbolted by Hector McQueen, the uniform with a button missing, the stiletto. All of these clues agree with the first solution.
Oui, and now of course my attention focused on Monsieur Hardman, for he, the apparent outsider, had provided a key element in this artificial solution of an unknown enemy. How to explain his complicity? And then I remembered that Mademoiselle Marceau had told to me 2 suggestive moments during 2 different interviews with Monsieur Hardman.
When he asked me to find a Kataya tile, when he said the snow was bright, when he apologized to me, when he gave me the key to the security room in the baggage car.
Mais oui, the snow has not been very bright today. The sky, it is overcast. And in his apology he mentions his fondness for French girls. Countess Andrenyi told us that the nursemaid, she was French. Her name was Suzanne. Our young friend Barnaby Lewis confirms via the ham radio that her full name was Suzanne Ferrier, and that she was born near Paris. So, it is not so much a leap, I think, to wonder if perhaps the man from New York and the French girl working there might not have formed the attachment.
I've been a detective for almost 20 years, Monsieur Poirot, but I'm in admiration of you. Yeah, Suzanne and I were going to ask her uncle if we could get hitched. He was her guardian. Then the kidnapping and everything. It was too much for her.
Her uncle, monsieur? And his name?
Oh, jeez, I can't say I remember.
A detective for almost 20 years? And you never even knew the name of your fiancé's guardian?
No, probably got it written down somewhere back in New York.
Enough of this foolishness. I can guess his name right now, and so I expect can Mademoiselle Marceau.
Monsieur Ferrier, Pierre Michel, Lucien, Marcel Bousse, Antonio Foscarelli.
The picture in your valise, it is that of you, your sister, and her daughter Suzanne?
Oui, monsieur. After my sister and her husband died in a car crash, I raised Suzanne as my own child.
And so, that leaves only one.
Me? If your tenant is one of your killers, Mr. Poirot, that makes you 12. You don't need me.
No, madame. I have come to the odd conclusion that the person who has taken no part in the crime is the one who would be considered most likely to do so. I refer to Countess Andranier. Her husband swore on his honor she did not leave her room last night. A count from a noble family? A rising young star in the Hungarian diplomatic service? Such a man does not swear upon his honor lightly. No, it is much more probable that he tells the truth. And it is the devoted husband who, so to speak, takes his wife's place. So you see, madame, we are back to 11 without you.
Well, I never. Wait until my daughter hears about this.
Why not tell her now? She is sitting there right beside you, Madame Arden. You are the instigator, or the director, I should say, of this entire performance. You, who Mademoiselle Debenham so rightly called the strongest character among us. And there you have it. Does this second solution explain everything? Let us see. Mademoiselle Marceau, what was the real murder weapon? But of course. A drama planned this carefully does not include the blood-stained stiletto with the fingerprints of some unknown. No, that is merely a prop. As were the 2 threatening letters. The burned note, of course, was a real threat. The conspirators most assuredly did not want this murder tied to the Armstrong kidnapping, and the true weapon, with no incriminating mark upon it, might never have been found, if it had been thrown inches further.
Bloody steak knives aren't balanced properly for throwing. My hat's off to you, though, Miss Marceau. When I saw where it landed, I wasn't about to crawl out there and end up at the bottom of that ravine. Took some nerve doing what you did, and there's no denying it.
Hear, hear.
So, the improbable differences in the stab wounds is now explained. 2 so-called clues were dropped in the dead man's compartment. Mademoiselle, the pipe cleaner, incriminating Colonel Arbuthnot, who had one of the strongest alibis and whose connection to the Armstrong family was probably the hardest to prove. And the second clue found in the room, mademoiselle? The handkerchief, incriminating Princess Dragomirov, who, by virtue of her frail physique and the alibi given by her maid and Michel, was practically in an unassailable position. Then there was the clue found at the shepherd's hut with the incriminating fingerprints. Do you have it, mademoiselle? With Matteo's incriminating fingerprints on it.
Not precisely cricket, you know, Tonio, to incriminate an innocent man.
Cyrus could swear Matteo had not entered the Calais coach. Michel informed us the radio was in the baggage car, and I went to put it out of commission. I did not want to destroy the equipment. It must have taken him much saving to purchase. So I only smashed the telegraph key. Signorina, you are a miracle worker for sure. To get the radio working again. I know about these things. That was a stroke of a genius.
Stick to the point, Monsieur Foscarelli.
With great pleasure. The padlock was just hanging there. I found the snowshoes earlier, and then the shepherd's hut. I was supposed to find a good place for the uniform and the stiletto, and the hut was perfect, but I had to break the lock to enter. All I did was go and get the padlock on the radio crate. I didn't mean to point the finger at Matteo.
The other red herring was not a herring at all, but it was certainly red. Mademoiselle?
And then to put it in my valise was not a nice trick.
The kimono is mine, monsieur. And mademoiselle, I had no intention of trying to incriminate you. I had to put it someplace, and I thought it would be amusing if you found it there.
Ah oui, you enjoy your little games, Countess. Mademoiselle Freebody, indeed. Well, Madame Arden, I know some of you suspected something was not quite right, but let us now look at the clues that fit neither solution so far. Madame Schmidt says she saw the phantom attendant, but we know now it was sheer invention. Yet we have the testimony of an independent witness who says he saw the non-existent small dark attendant actually getting on the train. Mademoiselle?
The engineer, the fireman, Matteo, the Athens-Paris coach attendant, Lucien, the waiter, Klaus, the chef de cuisine.
Oui, the engineer while the train was in the Belgrade station. And then there is the crate of Monsieur Ratchet and its unknown occupant. What clues associate themselves with that crate, mademoiselle?
The second attendant's uniform, the pile of books, the security door key, the broken snowshoes, the broken telegraph key.
Oui, the uniform I think worn by the person the engineer saw. The pile of books Mademoiselle believes were useful in the planning of the crime, yet no one has mentioned them. And the fact that the person with access to that key would be in the best position to tell us something of the occupant of that crate. And lastly, there is the little matter of the kidnapping of Mademoiselle Marceau.
I need a moment to decide.
Time is of the essence, mademoiselle. Pray do not take too long.